For our Spotlight interview today, I'm delighted to be joined by Jinal Shah, who is a UK Managing Partner of BCLP and a corporate partner. Jinal, so you started off as a corporate lawyer and you've become the UK Managing Partner of BCLP. I think it'd be interesting to hear a bit more about the journey, how from a corporate lawyer and partner, you've entered sort of leadership in a serious way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess maybe a little bit of background, which you can obviously read, but my journey started in a very different type of firm. I started at a firm that doesn't have its name anymore, but it's still, the people are still around in a bigger firm, but it was a city firm called Gouldens. And that's where I trained and was...
They always paid the highest NQ rates.
Yeah, that may have had something to do with why I joined Jonathan. So, but no, they were an excellent firm, really got fantastic experience there and was there for a long time. And that became Jones Day, as it is today. And then from Jones Day, I moved to Oric, where I was involved in developing their corporate department, and that's where I became a partner, and then moved to BCLP about 3 years ago. And you know, when you say I am the UK managing partner, but I am still a corporate partner and still very much practicing. So you know, that has continued throughout my career. I love practicing. I love doing corporate law and transactional work, and continue to do that with clients. Here at BCLP, what I found when I got here was that there's a really open environment, open to ideas, but it's a firm that is in transition, and we're continuing to move forward. And there was a space for me within the leadership team, so that's kind of a truncated version of kind of how I got here. Almost 1 year into the role as the UK managing partner. So it's certainly
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's certainly a learning year.
And how have you found that year? I mean, in terms of successes, challenges, what would you say to people who are maybe watching this who think, actually, I'm kind of quite fancy putting my hat in the ring for a leadership role? What would you say to them as to the challenges of the role, as well as the kind of flip side and the enjoyment of it?
Look, on the challenges side, I guess I'm responsible for stuff that I never imagined I'd be responsible for. So it's quite a range, you know, from, you know, people come to me with things that they need decisions on all the time, and you know, they can be quite basic things like the choice of coffee, which is relatively important in a law firm, to the strategy and direction that we're going. So it is a big range of things that are put onto my plate, on top of having a busy practice and being available for clients all the time. So again, sometimes on the challenges side, actually time management and kind of taking stock and putting context onto things can be challenging, but it is you know, an immense honour for me to take this on. We have a fantastic offering here, a fantastic office and people, and what I've really loved is getting behind the hood of the business, but also getting to know a lot more people a lot better. And for a lateral partner, again, I think I've been able to accelerate that and my integration into the firm so much more this year than I even did in the couple of years that I was before I took on the role. So
that's great. It's good to hear, because I think you mentioned the word integration, and I think, you know, having been a recruiting partner for 20 years now, I see a lot of thought given to the initial process, but less thought often given to the integration and how that will work. You mentioned integration. Is there any more details you can share, as well as you mentioned, you know, fast tracking or growth? Is there any more information you can give us as to how partners are integrated? Yeah, look,
the fundamental ethos of BCLP and the culture that pervades our whole firm globally is very much a collaborative enterprise. And we have the approach, certainly when you have a problem or an opportunity, the response that you get from everyone around is, how can I help? It's not the what's in it for me. That seems to be really important, and that really does help integration. Having a single platform globally also helps us. We're neutral as to where the work opportunities arise for our clients, and in fact we are deliberately steering the firm to maximize those opportunities throughout our global platform. So that also naturally helps with integration, but there are also there's a very targeted series of meetings that is carefully thought through. The partners that are directly involved, front and center of your recruitment, together with our people teams and other teams within the business, will be actively involved in the process of getting the partner across and integrated into our firm. Because ultimately, it's about much more than that partner just getting an email address, getting a laptop, and then doing the work for the clients that they've always done. That's not why we bring people in, and we understand that. And very much from, ahead of that person joining to the person joining, it's very much the focus of what we do. So again, we're also very used to bringing laterals in. As an organisation, and so we've refined our processes through that journey that we've been on, and also it's a very welcoming place. So again, on many fronts, I think that helps.
That sounds great. And talking about a welcoming place and integration, I know a strong passion of yours is diversity and inclusion. And I know you've also been involved with the Southeast Asian report for law firms. I think it'd be interesting to hear your views on diversity, and really not just views on diversity, but where you see the challenges are at the moment for the legal profession in diversity. Because I think it is become a buzzword, and every law firm I speak to, the first thing they say to me is diversity. And obviously it's very important that you represent a diverse industry and a diverse firm. Sure. But what challenges do you see in becoming a more diverse law firm?
I think it's much easier to talk the talk than to walk the walk. And one of the reasons that I chose BCLP over some of the other opportunities that I had was actually my experience initially through the recruitment process of who I engaged with, and my experience of what they were telling me, which was very authentic. And I could see immediately, people, whether they looked like me or they didn't, but were naturally much more understanding of what it means to have a diverse organisation, but also the benefits for the organisation. And it was very clear from the beginning. I engaged with many of our senior leaders ahead of joining, and right from the top, at the time we had co-chairs, and I met with the co-chairs, met with Shagan, who is now our global senior partner, but he's my predecessor in this role, met with our department leaders, met with my practice group leader, met with a number of other partners. And throughout that, those engagements, it was very clear to me that that diversity and inclusion were very much part of the fabric of the firm. It wasn't just something that they talked about. It was something that they lived, breathed, and understood, which I thought was important. And I think that highlights one of the challenges that we have as an industry, which is that ultimately we want to do the right things. It's just very hard to do those right things in making a truly inclusive environment. And law firms, the type of work that we're being asked to do, the type of challenges that we have, the organizational structures that have grown up quite often in law firms for over a century. The Bryan Cave roots go back over 150 years. The BLP roots went back into the 1930s, 40s, whatever. So it was stuff that will take time, but it was just a naturally inclusive place. And again, those features drew me here. As far as then specific challenges, it is really, I think, around making sure that we have a more representative environment from the top down, so that environment encourages and allows for a diversity of thought to come into our organisation, and then our decision making is going to be slightly different from organisations that are less diverse. So again, the challenge is kind of continuing that and realising that you're never done with it as well, and that always having goals that we set for ourselves where next year has to be better, and have improvements being made, have refinements being made, and being able to critically assess what we're doing and how we're doing it as well.
And you said improvements being made into next year. Do you set specific sort of targets or percentages in terms of diversity, whether it's a partner or associate or just wider?
We don't set specific targets on a year-by-year basis, but we have longer-term goals for our leadership, for the composition of our partnership. And look, I'm pleased to say that on as far as the way we're tracking in the UK and in London, we're ahead of that. But we're a global organisation, and we need to continue doing that as a global organisation. So we do that. And we're proud of doing that, and we believe there's real merit in that. But it's not I think it's also a mistake to look at it on a year-by-year basis and say, okay, well, have you just done that? Because those snapshots maybe don't give the longer-term picture. But of course, you have to keep looking at it regularly.
And did the report come out with any specific findings or conclusions that you can help with?
Yeah, so the report, it's a report in 2024, so some of the findings are relatively surprising still, and this is on the back of some work that we did with Diverse Talent Networks, and a report that came out, I think, a year before that, called the 1% study, which was looking at the experience of black partners in the city. And then this report, Stop the Talent Leak, was looking at the experience of South Asian partners in the city. And the findings were not dissimilar, that the barriers, the perceived barriers, the fact that ethnicity is seen as a barrier still to progression and success, whether it's from the recruitment stages to the progression through the profession, that is still seen as a barrier. So the findings include a number of recommendations. I'm not going to list them all, but the key ones being around kind of ensuring that there is an equality of opportunity. So, things like focus on work allocation, and trying to make that a more equitable process within and systematized within law firms. The idea of opportunities for social interaction, not just being focused on alcohol. The ideas for having a more open leadership that is engaging with people in a different way, all kind of really central to causing that change. And these are themes, and these are things that we're working on, as an organisation proactively. And I'm glad to say that, we have nothing but support from our partnership, our leadership, our business services, the whole organisation get it. So again, I think that makes it a bit easier.
Okay, and looking a bit more about yourself.
Yep.
And your rise, and you've just described all the different competing pressures you've had and the time management challenges. Do you have a mentor?
I have a lot of mentors, and I have had over the years, Jonathan. It's something that, I don't have a formal mentor, but I look to a number of people around me on a day-to-day basis, and more broadly than that, including within some of the client organizations where I've worked very, very closely with certain clients and certain people within clients over the years, and we lean on each other as well, and that really helps, keeps me measured. I have a number of friends within the industry who have helped me through various points in my career, and I really value their input as well. So, yeah.
And what would be your advice, thinking of more about mentoring for the next generation coming through? If you think about the sort of pressure on themselves in terms of, on the one side, the sort of flexible working, on the face of it gives people more personal flexibility and choice, but on the other side, perhaps a bit less accessibility to then building client networking. If they're not in the office, they're not learning from people or having that mentoring. What's your view as to, or what happens here for how junior lawyers are supported and mentored? Yeah,
so we have, and I'll get on to the advice bit, but as far as kind of the way we do things, we have formal and informal systems here. So we have a mentoring scheme, and that has good uptake. And the idea is that people will then, individuals, let's just take junior lawyers as an example, but they would volunteer to have a mentor, and then we also have mentors who volunteer, and then they can be matched up, and sometimes that works great, sometimes it doesn't quite work, and people can move on, and there's a culture of that here, but there's also a formal system. As our lawyers get a bit more senior, there are different types of mentoring that come up, and for our most senior associates that are in that sort of period, just in their run up to partner, there's sponsorship that comes, and so they get a mentor, and they work on a project with that mentor, with the idea that that project gets presented. So there are sort of various things that sort of come in. Beyond that, there's just a pretty open culture. So again, beyond the formalities, we have a quite nice, healthy, non-hierarchical structure. We're actually open plan. And so again, it's not like we've built ivory towers around our partners. We're pretty visible, we're accessible, we're in the office. And to that point, we actually are in the office quite a lot. So again, that means that for our junior lawyers, we're visible and available to them. And people do take us up on these opportunities. And we have the water cooler moments to the conversations in a meeting room to the more social settings as well. So again, there's lots of opportunities to interact.
And talking about, you mentioned the culture. Obviously, since the merger, there's been, and obviously all mergers take a time to settle down and find their way. There has been some departures over the last few years, and without obviously going into specifics or individuals, more looking forward, with you now at the helm, and you said you've been doing the role, where do you see the future for BCLP in the UK?
Look, I'm very optimistic. We are in one of the most dynamic and therefore competitive legal markets that exist. And we have to recognise that. And yes, the merger has meant that there's been some hard work to do to get the business into the shape of a merged firm, functioning as a merged firm. We were financially integrated from day one, which I believe is the right way to be for our law firm. But the alignments and sort of getting that work flowing through our network has taken a lot of work, and we're going to continue on that journey. Now, that journey means that the business continues to be shaped as a global business with priorities, but our key departments here, litigation and investigations, corporate finance transactions, and real estate, will continue to be our key departments. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we are as connected to the wider firm as we can. And we've developed a key client program, which we're expanding.
Great. And just to, I guess, conclude with some personal questions, if you don't mind. Don't worry, they're quite light. Nothing embarrassing. What was your first ever job?
I was working in the stationery department at John Lewis. So that was when I was at university. So I did that on Thursday evenings and Saturdays and loved it. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a future there maybe if you enjoy the management a bit less. If you weren't a lawyer, what do you think you would have done?
I may have been a chef, Jonathan. I'm one for the big occasion as far as kind of making feasts and things for the family, but I know that's a lot of hard work. So
if you're happy with the interview, I might get an invite.
Exactly.
And talking of a chef, who would be your dream dinner date?
I've spent a lot of time this year in South Africa for client work. So I would probably say Nelson Mandela. I've been kind of quite interested in kind of what's happening there. They recently had an election. There's a lot happening, but I would be fascinated to have a conversation with Nelson Mandela now, if he was still around and still with us, on kind of the way he sees the world, but also kind of the transformations that have happened in South Africa. I would be fascinated. So.
And what would you cook him or order? What would be your favourite sort of guilty pleasure food?
I love Italian food. So for me, I would still go with some comforting Italian food, maybe a homemade puttanesca pasta, and I quite often try and make desserts. My son loves making desserts, so we make a mean tiramisu, so I think we would certainly.
My son likes eating desserts. I'm not saying he likes making them, but I'll bring him with me to our dinner.
He likes eating them too. So
okay, perfect, lovely.
Thank you, John.